sharp analysis, and Ebuka Franklin and Chisom on the question wheel, driving the conversation. We bring you the most compelling discussions on governance, policies, and power plays. Stay informed, stay engaged, stay ahead. The Polity, every weekdays at 9:15 a.m. Exclusive on Udala 104.7 FM Onitsha.
And it is Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2026, a national observance, Children's Day in Nigeria, celebrated to focus on the rights, welfare, and development of children across Nigeria. And of course, the question has always stood around, are children in Nigeria faring any better? Years and years and years later, after it became a thing, the number of out-of-school children has remained high. Number of children underfed has remained high. As a matter of fact, number of children born into intentional poverty, which some persons have come to interpret as child abuse, remains high. Last 2 weeks, some children were kidnapped from a school in Oyo State, and unfortunately, as we celebrate this year's Children's Day, these children are still in captivity. And so the question is, what is there for children in Nigeria to celebrate today, May 27th? 2026. I'll leave you with that to answer for yourself. Good morning to you and welcome. I am Chisom Chinedu. This is a Polity on Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Franklin Ebuka is here with me. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Chisom, and good morning to everybody listening to this very morning. Of course, it's Wednesday, 27th of May 2026, and we're glad to be witnesses to this very day, which happens to be Children's Day in Nigeria. Of course, we know that Children's Day is an international celebration, but across different regions, they have different dates for the celebration. But here in Nigeria, we observe our own on May 27. And interestingly, it coincided with Eid Kabir. So, federal government declared today and tomorrow public holiday. So it's going to be a good time for them. Stay home today, stay home tomorrow. They'll have time to refresh before they get back to school in continuation of their education. And today, of course, supposed to be a day where we set aside to honor the younger generation, make advocacies for their fundamental rights, and get to promote the overall welfare. But the irony in Nigeria is that we can hardly say that these things are being done in the country, because here in Nigeria, we see know that there are many children who don't even have access to education. There are many children who are not even honored. There are many of them who are not even listened to. We still have their rights trampled upon, and their welfare is in shambles. You talked about the children who were kidnapped in your state. They've been in captivity for some days now, and one imagines the kind of horror they've been going through in the hands of these very abductors. And they have become like a pawn in the hands of bandits, where they are used for negotiation, they are used for trading. And the sad reality about it is that we only pay lip service to the welfare of children. We engage in rhetorics. Nobody gets to focus on the policies, issues that are going to ensure that children are well included in what we do. I was going through some materials trying to look at the policies that Nigeria has evolved over time in respect to protection and the welfare of children. I can see that a couple of them, but guess what? The question remains: how many of them have you even trying to implement? There's one I saw that is very, very interesting, and it made me to wonder. In Nigeria, there's one policy we call there's a policy we call what's it called again? National Policy on Orphans and Vulnerable Children, and this very policy provides support for orphans, street children, children who are affected by conflict or poverty, children who are living with disability. But go to our roads, you see many of them out there. Just go to Savoy, you see them there begging. So who is taking care of those children that will have policies that are meant to protect? So it's quite a day for reflection and for us to know whether we are going forward or backwards. I would like to see where governors will not just do their normal speeches, release statements, talk about how they are committed to the welfare of children without any action being in place. So let's sit back and see what we have in store today, because there are many things in the papers.
All right then, Dr. Tony Olisambeki is here as well. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning to you, Chisom. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, the good people of Southeast. Good morning, in the Anambra. Good morning, in the Onitsha Donidu. Good morning, in the Osumohu. Good morning, in the Afia, in the Oluaka, in the Nkuzi, in the Oloyibo. Good morning, the commuters, the transporters, the farmers, and everyone from different walks of life, different professions. Good morning, the senior citizens, the physically challenged, our brothers everywhere, brothers in Christ, and those are brothers in native way. Good morning, everyone. We are great this morning, and we believe you're also great. And today, just like we have pointed out, Eid al-Kabiru, Children's Day, and we even know very well that our children in Nigeria, they don't joke with this very day. And we are asking questions. Chisholm asks, what are Nigerian children not celebrating, especially when their international counterparts are celebrating? It's very unfortunate that those who have been kidnapped for some days now will be right in the kidnappers' den celebrating this very day. And the question will be, what have they done? Many Nigerian children are not celebrating quality education. Many of them, if you see the classroom where they are being taught, we saw a video of what happened in the Ebonyi State, where they were sitting on a bare floor and being taught. We are told that Ebonyi State government came hard on that very school, suspended the principal, suspended the teacher, and they were very, very mad at those who uploaded the video on internet.
But what does that say about how we do things here? Cover up.
It was a reality, but they were not happy that it went viral.
And it's a big shame.
They were sitting on a bare floor learning. And if you look at the children in question, 4 years, 5 years, we had uniform. And if you look at the teacher was, for me, one of the quality teachers, based on what she was teaching the children. But you can see the whole area, the building, an open space, more like a makeshift. It tells you what the Nigerian children are actually facing. It is disturbing. Many of them are malnourished. Many of them have been exposed to street hawking and all manner of, even doing the work of the parents. Yes. And many of these children, many of them cannot access basic health. Like even many of them are die as a result of typhoid and malaria, pneumonia. These things kill many of them. It's very unbelievable. We can go on and talk about what many of these children are not celebrating. And what of things, the issue is that nobody decides which country he's going to come from, or which family he is going to come from. Nobody takes such decision. If these children were given option to decide where they would want to come from, I bet you they may not put Nigeria. But that is by the way. Thank God Almighty for his grace, for his love, for all he has been doing for us. And we are always grateful for everything. And just as we say before I leave this one, because we know that Idu Kabiru is a period of faith, sacrifice, compassion. I remember it's just like what we know very well in our own Christian version, the sacrifice made by Abraham, where Abraham had wanted to sacrifice Isaac when God had instructed him to sacrifice Isaac. And Isaac being the only child, and Abraham being the father of faith, obeyed God to sacrifice his only son. He was about doing that before the angel of God told him not to hurt that boy, but rather to look around and see a ram behind him and use that ram as a sacrificial lamb. And his faith was tested. In Islam, Prophet Ibrahim, that was a sacrifice. He did Kabiru. And that's why ram is usually used for this celebration. But it reminds us of what? A lot. It reminds us of faith, sacrifice, passion for things of God. And mind you, I think it also ends the period of Ramadan, because that's the culmination of Ramadan, the period of fasting. And fasting has to do with spirituality, to be spiritually strong and also to be righteous. We celebrate our Friday State with our Muslim brothers and sisters wherever they are. Sit back and enjoy the program.
All right, then we're going to start off by telling you what the front pages of the papers say. And right after that, we get into the conversation proper. Just to let you know, we are live on Facebook. Udala Radio 104.7 FM is our handle. In our desk today, we have Vanguard, Guardian, Daily Trust, and the Punch newspapers. And starting off with Vanguard, the banner headline here is 2027 presidency. Controversies trail ADC primaries, court clears Jonathan. On page 5, the riders here, Amechi Hayachi Dean kick. Atiku awaits affirmation. Court dismisses suit against Jonathan with 21 million naira cost. Tinubu, Jonathan, Atiku, B 4-horse race looms. Duke, Shaware Honor, others emerge as standard bearers. 2027, your timetable must comply with statutory framework. Court tells INEC on page 9. NDC to introduce electronic voting for future primaries. Dixon is speaking on page 9. Eid al-Kabir, days over, or dark days over. Light is here. Tinubu assures Nigerians. On page 8. As Akpabio, Abbas, governors, Yawada call for sacrifice, unity, and national renewal. Resign if you can't secure Nigerians. Adebayo tells Tinubu on page 31. Middle East war. U.S. targets Iran's missile sites, mines, laying vessels in new attacks. This is on page 8. And on page 8 as well, Africa secures $498.8 million Ebola response pledges. And above the nameplate of the paper, credit to government surges 65.6% to 39.6 trillion naira on page 19. On page 33, abductions. CDS deploys troops, drones to track Oyo kidnappers. And on page 7, residents protest alleged cow killings in Warri.
Okay, so the headline about Shore, being named among those who are contesting for 2027 presidency, and that brought me to a video of him I watched where he was being asked questions if he has become a serial contester or contestant like Atiku Abubakar, and he picked offense in that very question. But if you look back and check when he began to contest for the presidency, you can put him in the within that region of Atiku Abubakar, who at every election cycle he comes out to declare his interest to run. And guess what? Yesterday I saw him saying that he was resigning. Okay, he was stepping down as chairman of the party to become the party's standard bearer for the presidency. And my question is, after the election, is he going to go back to being the national chairman of the party, or whether he's going to relinquish that and then allow another person to pilot the affairs of the party? I do not know. Ever since he became the chairman, if he has been able to add more numbers to the membership of that party, I do not know. Then let's look at the headlines on Daily Sun newspaper. Kidnapping, CDS orders deployment of special air surveillance to your state on page 4. Of course, that reminds us that those school children who were kidnapped alongside their teachers in your state, they are still in kidnappers' den. Court restores INEC power to issue election timetable activity schedule. You can also see that on page 6 of Daily Sun newspaper. Court ruling on eligibility. Presidency, APC mock Jonathan. PDP divided. Judge dismisses suit. Awards 21 million naira fine against lawyer. Good Luck's support group hails a judgment on page 6. NDC built on strong democratic structures, not personality. Dixon. You can see the writer there that says Obi asks aspirant to accept outcome of primaries on page 27. There is something circulating which we are going to verify on our own, because as it stands now, it's still in the realm of social media conversation, talking about how Aisha Yesufu fared in the NDC senatorial primary election. So by the time we verify, we'll confirm to you whether she actually lost or if she did not lose.
But sorry, Frank, to butt in there. Did Yahaya Bello really contest? Is he really a flag bearer for APC?
Yes, of course, he won primaries in Kogi Central.
Doesn't he still have a court case?
No. As long as you have a court case, does not bar you. He's not convicted.
He has not been convicted.
Yes.
And a party is comfortable fielding a man who has fraud charges.
And he's denying the fraud charges, saying that those things are.
It's for as it stands now, he's innocent.
That's what the law
before the law of the land, he's still innocent until found guilty. You're talking about Kogi State, former Kogi State Governor Uche Nnaji, who was accused of forgery. He contested for PDP ticket for governorship in Enugu State. As of this very morning, he's claiming that he won. And that man, Chief Nnaman, is also claiming that he won. So I do not know what is actually happening. Then let's continue with the headlines we have on the front page of the Sun newspaper. Idel Adha, Tinubu calls for sacrifice, unity, health reforms. That story can be found on pages 8 and 25. The writer there says, Governors Kalu, Olubado, others urge prayers for peace, patience. How Tinubu's dialogue strategy resolved Ogoni, Malabu oil, MM2 dispute presidency on page 27. Amechi Hayatuddin alleged irregularities reject ADC primaries on pages 8 and 15. The writer there says Hashim joins 2027 presidential race in a Accord party. So these are the headlines on the front page of the Sun newspaper.
Let's go to The Guardian. The banner headline here is Opposition Parties Battle Divisions Parallel Campaign or Parallel Camps ahead of 2027. That's on page 6. A military kills 317 terrorists as Borno closes school over abduction of 42 students. That's on page 29. Healthy diet costs doubles since fuel subsidy removal hits 1,541 naira. Interesting. Where, please? Because I'd like to check out that restaurant. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Frank.
I do not know. Please explain.
You don't know.
Yes.
To buy a plate of healthy food now. Because when you talk about healthy food, we're supposed to be looking at all the classes of food, or at least
Balanced diet.
a balanced diet. And one egg is 250.
Yes. Go on.
And you are supposed to eat at least 2 daily.
Okay.
And then you are talking about, say, a cup of rice being how much? You're supposed to make this with gas or kerosene or at least firewood. And then there is the oil cost. There is, speaking about oil, did you see the video of adulterated oil being thrown out in Lagos?
Yes, that just reinforced what we had known for a long time. We know that these days people concoct all manner of things in name of red oil. Just the way they concoct things in name of palm wine. So everything has become adulterated. And what worries me is that people no longer think about the health of the brother or the sister in the name of making money. And tomorrow we'll fact that we have never killed. We don't know many people or number of people we have rendered useless or we have put in the hospital because of our inhuman activities.
That was very sickening. To think that it was looking practically like plastic. and somebody sells that to people and unsuspecting people. And some other time, people who know, but because of cheaper alternatives, still buy them. It's really sad. Also, here on the front page of The Guardian, indigenous oil firms, refineries evade Niger Delta cleanup funding on page 7. INEC disowns political parties' membership figures on page 4. 2027. Again, court orders INEC to review election timelines amid appeal on page 6. EFCC transfers Maman to Kuje prison to begin 75-year jail term on page 7. Importers shun Nigerian ports for Benin as charges hit 20 million naira on page 4. And Malabo sues FG over OPL 245, demands 1 trillion naira compensation. Page 3. Idel Kabir Tinubu assures Nigerians of better days, urges unity on page 3. Credit to private sector drops by 15% amid rise in political risks on page 10.
Now, the headline about importers shunning Nigerian ports for Benin Republic because of charges, I do not know whether, this thing worries the government of the day, because imagine where we have ports, but people will prefer to go to Benin Republic. People will even go to Togo, to do all these things and then bring them back to Nigeria because of one thing or the other we have at the port. I do not know how we think about this, because each time government talks about ease of doing business, they bring out their ratings, tell you that we are improving, we are on this level, we're on this very level. You keep on asking yourself, people who do businesses in Nigeria, can they connect to all these very ratings that we normally put out in name of making progress? Then the headlines we have on the Punch newspaper, the big story there says ADC primary in turmoil as Amechi rejects Atiku win on page 2. The writers say Atiku wins in over 20 states. Act Rivers governor alleges results concocted. I am concerned by widespread vote rigging. Hayatuddin boycotts process. Seeks redress through party mechanisms. ADC tells aggrieved presidential aspirants. More governorship candidates emerge under PDP ADC. The story is on page 29. Oil price jumps amid renewed US-Iran tensions on page 9. FG cuts train fares 50% for Eid celebration on page 26. So for those of us who don't use train, what is our own token for the Eid celebration? Ex-Power Minister Maman begins 75-year jail term in Kuje on page 28. Jonathan cleared for 2027 as PDP hails court verdict on page 29. 30,000 Fulani militants fearing Nigeria's insecurity, US report on page 20. Court orders INEC to adjust 2027 poll timetable on page 25. Salah, Tinubu, Adebayo governors preach unity on page 28. Oyo abductions, CDS deploys spy aircraft special forces on page 20. These are the headlines on the front page this morning.
And of course, the conversation begins in earnest at this point. And like we said earlier, today is the 27th of May 2026. It's Nigeria's day of celebrating Children's Day. And Tony, while we are supposed to be celebrating children today, it's also our day to look at some of the challenges that the Nigerian children or children in Nigeria are facing, and consequently the Nigerian child has to face, has to brave up against, has to live with. We're talking, like you rightly mentioned earlier, Franklin, poor access to quality education, like what happened in Ebonyi State and in different parts of the country. I mean, some places in the north, schools are not even opening because of insecurity. And so sometimes there is access to education, but educational infrastructure and material are not available. And in some other cases, it's a situation of schools not even being available because of certain factors like insecurity. We're looking at other issues such as insecurity and kidnapping, like I mentioned earlier, like what we are presently faced with, like the incident in Orire local government area of Oyo State. There is the issue of child labor. There is the issue of child abuse and violence. I mean, you look around you, almost every quarter of the year, there is a story about a child who's been brutalized by one stepmother or by one guardian. At the end of the day, Nigeria still has issues of child abuse and violence everywhere. We are talking human trafficking, children being kidnapped, sold in different parts of the country and even outside of the country. We're also looking at issues of poverty, hunger, homelessness, poor healthcare access. This is a major problem. We are talking early and forced marriages, especially up north. We're talking drug abuse, especially among teenagers. We're talking mental health challenges. Sadly, some of them get depressed. Some of them succumb to bullying, anxiety, low self-esteem, trauma, and a lot more. And then there is the issue of digital exposure and cyber risk. And coincidentally, our Children's Day debate competition is going to be centering around something about this, talking about exposure to mobile devices, the pros and the cons. We're also talking about weak implementation of child rights laws. I'd like you to throw some light here, and of course, a wake-up call to the Nigerian citizen. How do we become a part of this operation Save the Nigerian Child?
Well, let's begin with everything about the Children's Day. I would like to start by saying that Children's Day is a special day set aside globally to celebrate children, promote their welfare, and draw attention to issues affecting them such as education, child labor, abuse, trafficking, malnutrition, and insecurity. Well, the modern idea of Children's Day began sometime around 1857 when Reverend Dr. Charles Leonard held a special church service dedicated to children in Massachusetts, United States of America. But in 1954, the United Nations General Assembly encouraged countries around the world to establish a day dedicated to promoting children's welfare, rights, and international understanding among children. I'm aware that Nigeria officially began celebrating Children's Day on May 27 in 1964. On May 27, 1964, and that date has remained a national observance for Children's Day. Remember, when we talk about Children's Day, this very day, it is not a global thing, because if you look at 1954 declaration by the UN General Assembly, they encourage countries around the world to establish a day dedicated to promoting children's welfare. Nigeria decided that their own day will be on May 27 in 1964. That's when Nigeria officially began. But globally, World Children's Day is recognized on November 20 because that was the date the United Nations adopted the Declaration of the Rights of the Child in 1959 and later the Convention on the Rights of the Child in, I think, 1989. So globally, the World Children's Day is recognized on November 20 because of this adoption of the Declaration of the Rights of the Child in 1959. Having said that, we have different rights or acts in Nigeria. I think let's begin by saying different acts that protect children. One, we have the Child Rights Act. That was in 2003. The Child Rights Act is Nigeria's principal child protection law. It was enacted on the 16th of July 2003 by the National Assembly. That was during the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo. And remember, the law defines a child as any person below 18 years. That's the definition of who is a child. That's what our law defines who is a child. So anybody who is under the age of 18 years, by our own law, the Child Rights Act of 2003, is a child. If the person has finished secondary school, because these days there are those that will finish secondary school at the age of 17, and you may look at them based on their education or the level they have attained, you think they are no more children. But the law says they are children as far as they are below 18 years. Having said that, if you go to the sections of that very law, of course I have been preaching that the law should be amended, because that law is very old. From 2003, it should be about 20 something years. It's old. There are a lot of developments that the law did not accommodate. I will not go deep into that, but we are pushing for certain amendment. Of course, if you look at section 1 of that very law, it talks about that the best interest of the child shall be the paramount consideration in every action concerning a child, in anything you want to do with a child, in all ramifications. The best interest of the child, not your own best interest, not the family's best interest, not anyone's best interest, but the best interest of the child shall be the paramount consideration in every action concerning that child. So we have to take it up there. The point, because if you look at other sections, like if you go to section 11, it guarantees the right of every child to dignity and protection from torture, abuse, neglect, and degrading treatment. You don't talk to a child and tell a child, shut up. You don't do that. The law prohibits that, and many people don't even know there is punishment. You don't abuse a child emotionally, psychologically, physically. You don't. When you raise your voice on a child, it's a form of abuse. But some people will say, if we don't do this, how do we correct a child? There are many African families that will tell you, this kind of thing will not work here. Maybe it's obtainable elsewhere, but not here. That in our own culture and tradition, when a child does something wrong, you flog the child with the left hand, you draw the child with the right hand. The law says you cannot even flog. That flogging is a physical abuse. And if you are taken to court, if you are running a court, you will be convicted and you go in for it. The law sits above your culture and tradition. That's what it is. We have to explain these things so you know how to balance it. Because if anybody can pick you up, and then there will be charges against you for physical abuse of a child, not minding the fact that you're the parent. The law envisages that if a child does something wrong, you call the child. You talk to the child. You talk to the child. You use certain corrective and persuasive ways to get a child corrected. That's the law. I'm not saying whether it is right or wrong. I'm just trying to tell you what the law tells or what the law says. Having said that, but let's leave what the law is talking about and what the law is not talking about. But it's important that the law prohibits child marriage and child betrothal. You don't, in any way, any person below 18, you don't contract marriage, because the law sees the person as a child. Any person below 18, I have to say this before I go into some other things, because this one is important. You don't in any way conduct a marriage to anybody below 18 or any form of betrothal. The law prohibits that, and there is punishment. I don't want to start telling you the punishments. These things are mostly prison sentences. Prison sentences. We must be very careful when you relate or deal with a child. I don't want to talk about issue of rape. That one, we have talked about it the other time. And rape, not minding when you rape a child. When you rape a child and when you rape an adult, there are two different things. They are not the same. Raping a child and raping an adult. And a child in this case is somebody who is below 18. Having said this, let's talk about some other things that their counterparts elsewhere are celebrating. But because they are from here, they are not. And we have mentioned few of those things, no doubt. We've talked about education. It is the inalienable right of every child to have not just education, quality education. Go to that declaration of 1959 I talked about earlier on, because we are signatories to some of these declarations. Yes, we are. The Declaration of the Rights of the Child in 1959, and even the Convention on the Rights of the Child in the one of 1989. We are signatories. In these declarations, education, not just education, quality, you don't take it away from them. And that's why we introduced universal basic education in Nigeria, where it's expected that every child will have free education from primary, from nursery to secondary school. Many people don't even know that. It is something that is statutory, that every child shall have free education from nursery to secondary school in Nigeria. But some states are not fulfilling that. Many states, for one reason or the other, introduce one fee or one charge or one tuition, things like that. It is statutory to go and look about the UBEC Act. And there are also policies that protect this. But that's, by the way, an issue of health, security. These things are inalienable rights of every child. Security, quality health, quality education. You ask this basic question: are these things obtainable in Nigeria? Hawking, when you tell a child to go and hawk, it is what we call child labor. People don't even know that giving a child anything to hawk is child labor. And if the child is arrested and the child says that you were the one that gave him or her the items the child could be hawking, you go in for that, because that's child labor. The law defines what the child labor is. And especially when that is done during time the child should be in classroom. There are some states that have enacted laws prohibiting children hawking during the during the school hours. These things are there. In fact, if you go to other countries like Germany, once you are born there is what we call child support coming from the government. Many governments have policies or laws that look after the welfare, the growth, the development of a child. And many call it child's welfare, some call it child support. So there are so many names for it. I don't know when Nigeria will have such a thing. Because there are those, that's why sometimes you will see some couple, once it's time for them to be, the woman to be delivered of a baby, the woman will run to some of these countries. Because there are certain entitlements. Child support, they don't jump with it. And when a man and a woman have issue, when a husband and a wife, they are having issue, the government takes interest in the children. That is the most paramount thing to government. They are looking at how the welfare of you can have your issues, but let it not affect the child. Let it not affect the children involved. Governments all over the world have laws protecting such situation. I don't think we have such law in Nigeria, because we have had issues of divorce cases and all that. You go to court will make some recommendations, or not recommendations, court will make ruling that a man, you'll be bringing this child support of so amount of money for the upkeep of these children. The man will run away. The man will know where, in fact, will be nowhere to be found. The man will not even keep to that. A situation where the court says, if you don't do this, you have to deposit this as a collateral. The man will say, no be today. But I think we should have a standalone law. Situations where marriages are dissolved, or there is separation between a man and a woman, the law that will protect children, the offspring, those who are involved. That should be a law, a standalone law on this issue. Because many of them are vulnerable. Many of them will not go to school. Many of them would, because of what they don't know about, because the man and the woman cannot agree over one thing or the other, or issues relating to them. How are we going to bear the brunt? Can you find out?
Okay, totally. Let me intervene a bit here. Okay. We've been able to highlight some of the challenges facing the Nigerian child. Chisom did a thorough thing there, highlighting them, plenty of them, in as much as we might not have exhausted all of them. And then you talked about the right to education. I just want to make some highlights and then bring my question.
Okay.
If you look at the Federal Ministries of Women Affairs Child Rights Act, which was made in 2003, in fact, some states are meant to domesticate that, some haven't even done that. If you look at that very Child Rights Act of 2003, it provides the right to free and compulsory basic education. And when you talk about basic education, the one that covers for 9 years based on our school system now, then I will leave this. Let me get to the Universal Basic Education Policy, the UBE. It also provides for free and compulsory basic education. It provides for 9 years of uninterrupted schooling. It provides for also reduction in out-of-school children. Then if you look at National Policy on Education, it also provides or promotes equal access to education for every child. It provides for early childhood care development and education. Then that's one it also calls inclusive education for children with disabilities. I'm highlighting this thing for a purpose. These are government policies, and these are laws we have made, and all these things are trying to ensure that every Nigerian child has access to education, at least at the basic level. But if you look around now, you see that there are many Nigerian children who do not have access to education, and keep on wondering, is it that the parents do not want their children to go to school, or that they cannot afford to send them to school? If it means that they cannot afford to send them to school, then what is the government doing? The government that has the responsibility. Then, looking at these very laws, can Nigeria, at its present state, shoulder the responsibility of ensuring that children have access to basic education? If it can, so these laws we have here and there, why are they not being implemented? And if the government cannot, so why do we go ahead making policies, making laws? They are there in the books, and nobody cares to implement them.
Well, you've raised important issue. Of course, we are still on that. And then, what could be the punishment for not implementing UBEC, especially for states? Well, we have said it many times from time to time. Let me say this. When we talk about basic education, 6 years of primary education and 3 years of junior secondary education, making it a continuous 9-year compulsory education system. That's what basic education is all about. When Frank was talking about 9 years, we have to break it down. 6 years of primary school and 3 years of junior secondary school. But there are some states that have upgraded to the other part, say SSCE, okay, the senior secondary school level. Remember, UBE policy was introduced in 1999. It came first as a policy, as education program and vision, but UBE Act, Universal Basic Education Act, came in 2004, where it gave it a Lego packing. Let me not also forget that Universal Basic Education Act, signed in 2004, that is 2004, to make basic education free, compulsory, and universal for every Nigerian child of school age. In fact, in that act, it establishes UBEC to implement and supervise the program nationwide, having established this. And recall that UBEC also include early child care, adult literacy, non-formal education, even nomadic education, and even special education for vulnerable children. Well, we've seen so many states failing to do the needful. Because if you go to section 2, subsection 4 of the UBE Act, it provides punishment for parents who fail to send their children to school. And the law states that a parent who violates the compulsory education requirement may first be reprimanded. On second conviction, fine. The parent will be fined. And then on the third conviction, the person will go straight to prison. Oganga. That's what the law. But that's why I have said that we must look at that law. Because if you look at the first conviction, that is reprimand. Then the second one, a fine of 2,000. But they also say if the person fails to provide 2,000, the person will go in for 1 month imprisonment, or even both, depending on the courts.
Sometimes when they make these laws, I start to ask myself, is everything okay at home? 1 month versus 2,000 naira.
Yes, you bring two. There are families that cannot cover 2,000. Chisom, don't even laugh.
You know why I'm laughing? Give me a second. I know there are still people that are the poorest of the poor, but juxtapose 2,000 naira and having to be incarcerated, knowing fully well the condition of our correctional facilities in the country, for what? I am talking 30 days, Tony.
Yeah, if you don't bring 2,000, you go in for 30 days imprisonment. But the Nigerian Senate has proposed that 2,000 should be upgraded to 25,000 naira. That's the proposal.
Okay, see what I was trying to do. You know, law evolves with society. If you look at when this law was made, if you check the value of 2,000 naira, then it's not the value.
That's a big money.
So that's why we keep on saying that as society is evolving, the lawmakers have to do their responsibility by trying to evolve the laws to be in tandem with the times,
realities
of the time. Now, you raised something about, okay, yes, it was Tony who was talking about some of the provisions in this very law, and I'm still getting back to that my question, because if you are providing for punishment for parents who fails to send his or her kids to school, then what about the government that has a responsibility to ensure that there is access to this basic education? Because there are some parents that, to be honest, if you go to them, your child, you cannot get a go back to school, because when you are sending someone to school, you send the person to school, maybe the person lives in a state where there is no free basic education. The person has to pay for tuition, pay for uniform, pay for sandals, pay for locker, pay for books and other things. And there are parents, I must tell you, who do not have that very money. So if they have a responsibility to ensure that their kids go to school, and as a punishment in case they fail, then on the part of government that has made laws that impose responsibility on it, that fails to do its own, what happens to government?
All right, that's a good question, Frank. That's a good one. Frank is so much concerned about what would happen to government. But let me be honest to you. There is no, I've thought through the law, there is nowhere, there is no place in the law that clearly punishes government. The only thing the law emphasized is the fact that the state government must ensure that they provide their counterpart fund before they access UBE funds. Because you know very well that under the UBE Act, the federal government set aside 2% of its consolidated revenue fund. We call it CRF. The federal government set aside 2% of its CRF, consolidated revenue funds, every year as intervention fund for basic education. And these funds are managed by the Universal Basic Education Commission, that is UBEC. And what that means that the states cannot access this money automatically. Each state must provide its own counterpart funding, its own version. Usually matching funds of the one the government will provide. And we've seen many states not even bringing out its own counterpart fund. For you to access the federal government 2% of its consolidated revenue set aside, managed by UBEC, you must provide their own counterpart funding by as a state. But many states have not done that. And there was a time when I think Willie Obiano in Anambra State that was not even also done. Well, just like we say that if you go by section 11 subsection 12 of that very law, it states that in order to be eligible for the federal government block grants from the fund, state shall contribute not less than 50% of the total cost of projects as his commitment in the execution of the project. Having said that, but I have said before now, there is no place in the law that reprimands, that punishes the government when it falls on its own obligation. That is, for me, not acceptable, because if you are going to punish the parents for not doing what they should do, you can also find a way to freeze government accounts for failing, because government is not an individual but managed by individual. You know, the thing that affect government very well, when their accounts are garnished, that's when you freeze their accounts. Government will be under intense pressure to do something. I think if that was introduced in this law, it would have made a lot of difference. That's why many people are not even feeling this UB of a thing. Many are not feeling it because there is no punishment clearly stated.
Tony, it's not worrisome that we live in a country where basic education is like a right. It's like a right. That's the way it is. In as much as it's not that it's like a right. It's a right. But the irony is that it's not justiciable. Then we live in a country where this right is breached.
And nothing is done about it.
Everybody's comfortable.
Nobody even remembers that this is a right and that it's being breached every day.
Next thing we begin to make regulations
It's really sad.
Looking for on who to bring into the net.
Okay.
All right, we are rounding off this conversation already because we understand that there are a couple of developments politically. However, Tony, give me a second. I want to raise a few concerns and then you round off with them. We had a safe school campaign with the previous police leadership. I don't know what happened to it, if the present police leadership couldn't continue with it or what happened, but our schools are not safe.
Okay.
Proof is your state or your local government school kidnap. Also, what are the role of stakeholders? Talk about parents, families, teachers, religious body, and of course the media here in making sure that the rights of children are preserved.
Self-school initiative is a policy, and we would want it to be a law where punishment will be meted out, especially to either security agencies, government, when they fail to do what they're supposed to do. And the easier punishment you can also extend to these people is when you freeze certain accounts. They cannot be able to access those funds. When you don't place a burden, when you don't place a kind of a commitment on anybody expected of any tax, nothing would happen. I want to also let you know that in Canada, for instance, the families receive Canada Child Benefit. They call it CCB, a monthly payment to support raising children. You see how Canada is supporting raising of children. Families, government set aside a particular percentage of their revenue for child benefits, Canada Child Benefit. And if you go to UK, the same thing. They call their own child support. If you go to Germany, parents receive what they call Kindergeld. Kindergeld is what we call child allowance. Children are paid allowance by government, but their parents receive such kind of thing. In Sweden, the same thing. If you go to most European countries, it is just cardinalized. Now, coming back to Nigeria, self-school initiative is just a policy, and there is no commitment, no punishment. And here in this country, whatever you put up something without stringent punishment and enforcement, it doesn't work, because we are a stubborn set of people. That's what we are. Nobody cares, and it is very, very unfortunate that Nigerian children, look at those in Orile, people we are talking about. Many of these children, you know what it means for them to face cold, for them to face rains, for them to face mosquito bites, snake bites, and all manner of bites. 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, they are in captivity. They are in forest. What agony, what offense have these children committed? Let me quickly run up by saying that. Let me say this. When we talked about the Child Rights Act, of course, we mentioned it earlier on. Below 18 asa. Let me speak it in our own
you're not allowed to ask a girl who is below 18 out. And that's not also exempted to the female children. The male child.
Inclusive of the male child.
Yes.
You don't do that. The law says because if you are a child, you don't have decision of your own. A child has no decision of his or her own. And
let's also be clear, when that child is consenting regardless, it's also a crime, because that child is not old enough.
The law says the child has no right to consent to anything, and you that is even approaching a child, the first thing you do is to ask the child, how old are you? Because there are some of these children, they are what we call there's a term we usually call them
juvenile minors.
By their look, you wouldn't know they're minors.
Oh, you mean the overgrown ones?
Of course, it's important. There are many of them you will see around overgrown. They will look 25. They will look 24. The first thing you do is to ask, how old are you? For you not to be entrapped, because if the parents are aware that you are asking their child out, they will report you to the police and you'll be arraigned. Once you are arraigned, you go in for it. But the only thing that will save you is she said that she was, or she is, or she had been, or whatever. But you must provide proof. If you don't provide proof that probably she altered or she told you or that she's above 18, if you don't have proof, that one cannot be counted. It's important for you to be very careful, because while we are doing this, there are things you should also learn. Anybody below 18 is a child, and that person has no decision of his or her own. And you may say, what about those in the northern part of the country? Are they not doing that kind of thing? The law also applies to them. The law also applies to them.
All right, then we're going to move on to other matters now, and that is because yesterday we had a few reports concerning primary elections in different parts of the country. Speaking about the controversy trailing ADC's primary elections yesterday, and like frankly rightly mentioned earlier, we're going to dig some more about what happened in some parts, especially where it involves the likes of Aisha Yusufu. But for now, let's quickly look at certain matters, which includes a federal high court in Abuja restoring the authority of the INEC to issue election timetables and regulate activities surrounding 2027 elections. Also, we understand that the ruling follows legal disputes over whether INEC exceeded its power regarding timelines for party primaries, candidate substitutions, and submission of party registers rather. Also, we understand that the judgment is already garnering reactions among political parties and civil society organizations. And there is also the issue of the court clearing Goodluck Jonathan to run for 2027 if he so wishes. And of course, the PDP is all excited about this. What do you make of these two developments, Tony?
Well, let's begin with that of Jonathan and then we move straight to what the court ruled yesterday. It's important for you to understand the grounds upon which the Federal High Court made ruling yesterday. And it was a case where the plaintiff has no locus. And the plaintiff, in fact, many times failed to appear before the court. You sued or you made a kind of interpretation. You came for interpretation of the law, of course. At the end of the day, you were nowhere to be found. And the court kept adjourning until the court decided to enter into judgment. And the court also maintained that matter had been decided before now. And it was a case of abuse of court process. That it has been decided by cause of calling a jurisdiction. So why would somebody bring something that has been decided many times by court before the court again, wasting the precious time of the court, and at the same time fail to appear? That was why the court awarded 20 million naira against the plaintiff in favor of Goodluck Jonathan and 1 million in favor of Attorney General of the Federation. And the report we have everywhere is that the court has cleared Jonathan. The court had always, in fact, had cleared him before now. That was exactly what happened yesterday at the court. So we have to be very, very
clear about that.
So it's not a case newly decided. The court didn't say, "Oh, Jonathan, you can now run." I'm just trying to let you know that the court was very scathing about the plaintiff for not for wasting the precious time of the court. Now, coming back to the latest ruling, because we had earlier ruling that was from Justice Muhammad Umar of the Federal High Court, where he nullified several key parts of INEC reverse timetable, and we've talked about this many times on this very program, and where the court ruled that INEC cannot shorten statutory timelines clearly stated in the Electoral Act of 2026, especially 120 days for candidate nomination and 90 days for withdrawal and substitution. That was the judgment of Justice Muhammad Umar of the Federal High Court. But yesterday, being the 26th May, we had another judgment coming from Justice James Omotosho. And in this one, James Omotosho, the suit was filed by the Social Democratic Party. And in the case of Muhammad Omar, the case was filed by the Youth Party. But the one filed by the Social Democratic Party was, where James Omotosho was affirming INEC's authority to manage election timetable, while still requiring some adjustment. But if you look at the key point from James Omotosho's judgment, that INEC has constitutional and statutory power to issue, manage, and even alter election timetables and schedules of activities for the 2027 general election. And James Omotosho went further to say that this power is backed by the 1999 Constitution and Electoral Act. And then went further to say that without a clear timetable from INEC, the electoral process would not descend into chaos. And the court affirms that INEC's timetable for party primaries and submission of the membership register is generally valid. However, the court did not give INEC a blank check, because I've seen reports making rounds in some quarters. The court yesterday by James Omotosho also said that INEC must strictly comply with the minimum timelines in the Electoral Act. James Omotosho affirmed that. And the court ordered INEC to amend specific part of his timetable, particularly around candidate nomination deadline, to align with Section 29, Subsection 1 and 31 of the Electoral Act. People are making false representation of what James Omotosho ruled yesterday. That's a false representation. James Omotocho affirmed that INEC has right to manage, issue timelines, issue timetable, and all these things, that this is about. But he said you must be in compliance with the Electoral Act. And what Justice Muhammad Umar was actually saying was the fact that INEC, the one he issued, was not in compliance with the Electoral Act, especially Section 29. And also cited some part of your issuance that do not comply and set them aside. James Omotocho did not restore what Justice Muhammad Umar set aside. He did not. What he was saying that yes, you have statutory rights. You can do those things. And remember, Justice Muhammad Umar did not say INEC does not have statutory right to issue, to publish. No. The cardinal point of Justice Muhammad Umar's judgment was you must comply with the Electoral Act while you do it. Yesterday, James Omotocho also repeated the same thing. You must comply with the minimum. You must. That's what James Omotocho repeated. I don't know why those are saying now court has restored INEC this has. No. People are making false interpretations. Even when we know that because probably that this issue or this case was instituted by Social Democratic Party long ago. Ordinarily, if we have a system of justice that is time proof, James Omotocho ought to know that the same issue had been adjudicated by a court of coordinate jurisdiction. Yes, but because there is no digitization of our justice system, he has to enter judgment. But his judgment did not contradict the judgment of Justice Muhammad Umar. He says, INEC, you have this power, you have this statutory right, but you must do it in compliance with the Electoral Act. And then the Justice Muhammad Umar interpreted the Electoral Act. It's important we understand these basics.
So Tony, these two court judgments, is there anything different in the basis on what they ruled on? That's number one. The number two is the fact that you were saying that Justice Omotocho ruled on a matter that a court of coordinate jurisdiction had delivered judgment on earlier, and perhaps because there's no tracking system, that's why he went on to rule on this very matter. Now, what could have been the best thing at this very level, given that Youth Party took a similar case to a federal high court, in as much as the prayers were not exactly the same, but there are some levels of semblance in their prayers. What could have been the best thing on this case? Should the court have denied judgment on this very case, knowing that a court of coordinate jurisdiction had earlier adjudicated on this very matter?
All right. Now let's go back to some certain issues or facts about the two matters before two different courts of coordinate jurisdiction. Youth Party filed their case. That was March 11, 2026. That was when Youth Party instituted this action against INEC. It was Youth Party versus INEC, and judgment was delivered on May 20 by Justice Muhammad Umar, and the certified true copy of that judgment came around May 21st. Now, because if you look at the subject matter before Justice Muhammad Umar, the core issue was whether INEC has the power to prescribe or shorten timelines for political parties in its revised timetable for the 2027 general election. That was the issue Youth Party brought before the court, whether INEC has the power to prescribe or shorten timelines for political parties in its revised timetable. The Youth Party was challenging that they cannot shorten the timelines as provided in the Electoral Act. Now let's go back to Social Democratic Party, that is SDP versus INEC. They filed their own suit on April 9. The other people filed their own suit on March 11. These people, Social Democratic Party filed their own suit on April 9, and judgment was delivered yesterday. And you can imagine the difference. And if you look at the subject matter, challenging aspect of INEC revised timetable and schedule of activities, they were challenging some aspects of INEC's schedule of activities and timetable. They asked the court to determine whether INEC's power to monitor primaries and receive notices extend to fixing or compressing timelines. They have two different subject matters, so you may even forgive the Justice James Omotocho, because I had said earlier on that The only thing is that it somehow maybe colluded with key elements of Justice Uma's judgment. But the subject matter before the court, they are entirely different. Because what Social Democratic Party came before the court to ask was that the court should determine whether INEC's power to monitor primaries and receive notices extend to fixing or compressing timelines. And the compression of timeline is at the same time as shortening of timeline.
Timelines, yes.
They are the same thing. So if you look at it based on this, because if you say compression of timeline, this one says shortening of timeline, they are the same.
They're the same thing. Just different.
I think semantics.
Semantics.
Yes. If you look at the meanings, they are the same. Because this one started by issuing notices and monitoring primaries. That's how it started, but ended up by saying compressing timeline.
Yes, because the substance of the two seats is about whether INEC has the power to shorten the timeline.
Exactly. And if you also look at the one the Youth Party brought, they also talk about to prescribe or shorten the timeline. So they are, for me, the same subject matter, because just like you said, because we don't have the tracking system, because the justice system is not digitized, and that's why it went the way it went. Ordinarily, once judgment had been tendered on the other one, the court would also, before you file that matter, the court will remind you that it had been filed in a court of coordinate jurisdiction, because you have to go and join the suit ongoing there. I don't know if you understand me, because one 11th of March, the other one April. I think an interval of a month or thereabout. The point I'm trying to make, the two judgments do not contradict each other. Yes, they have powers, they have this statutory obligation, but it must be in compliance with the Electoral Act. That's the way Justice James Omotocho put it. But then in the case of Justice Umar Muhammad, it was clearly stated that all these timelines, all these things you posted, this one, set aside. Set it aside. What Justice James Omotocho did was to say, yes, they have the powers, but it must be in compliance. He did not set aside anything. But Justice Muhammad Omar says, set aside certain provisions, certain timelines, and also timetables by INEC, and we have seen that. So if you look at what many of our newspapers reported, they reported two different things. They said, hey, another court has restored the power of INEC.
So, Tony,
for me, it's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Tony, who assigns cases to judges of the Federal High Court?
Okay.
Is it not the head of the Federal
Chief Judge of the Federal High Court?
Federal High Court, which is Justice Soho.
John Soho.
Cases come and he assigns these very cases. So when these cases are coming, don't they keep track of these very cases?
It's very easy, even without digitization. You have said it, Frank. It's just one person assigning these cases. Each time any of these cases comes from, because we have different Federal High Court jurisdictions in the country, one man does the assignment. Don't he looks at the subject before assigning? I don't know that it's left for them to decide some of these things. Because I believe that if you are one person assigning cases to judges, one had come around April, and the subject matter what has to do with shortening the election timeline as prescribed in the law. Another one comes around April. You would have directed the one that came around April that such subject matter is already.
Okay. Look at where I'm even going. I'm going towards the fact that if two persons files, or if two persons files cases on a subject matter, maybe they are similar, and one was filed earlier, one was filed later, you cannot on your own determine which is going to come first in judgment.
Exactly.
But when the judgment comes, for the fact that you are the one who assigned the case, and I believe that they are meant to keep track of all these very cases. So what is that difficulty in this very communication, so that we don't keep on having this, court of coordinate decision repeating themselves on the same matter, just like the one of Jonathan, that courts had decided about it many years ago. First it was Federal High Court, second went to an appeal court, and somebody still went to court again to file a case in that very respect.
And to think that actually the person was allowed to file it, because aren't these courts supposed to have access to all these records? And when you file it, isn't it a waste of judicial processes and all of that, Johnny? I think they should know at the point of filing, this has been decided on, and throw it out.
No, the court believes that you must be given
fair hearing.
You must be listened to first. Anything you bring before the court, based on natural principle of justice, you must be heard.
Look at how bloated issues are. Look at the fact that there are so many people who still need to be heard by the court. And matters like this are still heard over and over. It just doesn't make sense.
Because
but if
you bring this matter before the court and the court says, oh, he has been found, they deny you fair hearing. The court, the principle of natural justice believes that you must be listening. But I'm saying immediately the court enters into hearing. It has to pause and remind the litigant that we have heard you. It's before this place.
All right then. We take a break now to attend to some commercials. When we come back, we'd open up the phone lines. Do not forget, it's still the Polity on Udala Radio 104.7 FM.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM.
Julie, these people did too much for your face now, no?
Oh boy, I don't tire. Even the rashes and eczema for my body, if you see them, you go run. I don't try every soap and cream, but you know they come out.
No worry, when you take MSC Calskin C cream Hamaram, then go come out by force.
You say waiting, MLC Calskin C cream?
Bam! That be the new formula for take fight pimples, rashes, eczema, dandruff, boils, whitlow, ringworm, scabies, shaving rashes, foot rots and more. Just clean the affected part with soap and sponge and rub the cream to enter the skin wella 3 to 4 times per daily, and everything will disappear within 3 days. Fiam! Now product of Jonko Ventures Nigeria Limited, number 7 AZ Huaku Street, Wipa Layouts, off kilometer 7 Odisha Aweri Road, Onisha. Phone 08033941979 or
09136855119.
MSC Caskin C Cream, War Against Skin Infections, African Gold Award winner 2011.
Are you looking for a perfect space to make your events unforgettable? From child dedications to weddings, concerts, birthday parties, crusades, or even corporate events. City Hall Entertainment Ventures presents City Hall, Awada, located at number 10 Ijala Street, near Ukewu Junction, Awada Obosi. With a 600 seating capacity, state-of-the-art stage, standard wash facilities, a massive parking space, 24/7 lighting, and proper ventilation and cooling system to keep your guests super comfortable. City Hall Entertainment Ventures, and even cooling equipment to make sure that all your drinks are chilled. For bookings and reservations, please call 0803 324 2806 or 0906 000 7617. Hurry now to number 10 Ijala Street, Awada for all bookings and reservations and get a 10% discount.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. You're listening to The Polity. Get involved now.
And this is the time you get to get involved. 0803 221 6973 0803 827 6694. Do not forget we are live on Facebook, Udala Radio 104.7. Drop your comment right under the video of the show. Good morning.
My name is Comrade Owalchan. I'm calling you from Monica. Can I go on?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm so much concerned about the welfare of children, of Nigerian children, you know. When the disability was, they didn't have all those provisions inside the right act. I was marveled. You see all these laws. I don't even know that all these laws are here in this country, you know. But you see how he was reeling them out, and we are listening, yet zero implementation. We are celebrating 2026 Children's Day, you know, celebration. If you go to the verified Facebook pages of our governors, senators, presidents, you will see beautiful speeches, beautiful policies, beautiful programs for Nigerian children. Yes, zero implementation. Let me tell you the truth. If Nigeria is a country that is habitable for human beings, I'm sure the president must have resigned by now. They are celebrating Children's Day. Thousands of children are in the bush in the hands of the captive. We see children of 2 years, 3 years, They are in the bush in this rainy season. Then, do we talk about IDP camps? Millions of children are in the IDP camps. Millions don't even have access to ordinary drinkable water. Nigerian children, over 20 million of them are out of school, and we are celebrating Children's Day. Just like Tony Sambeki said, if these children were given an option to choose where they would like to come from, I can tell you millions of Nigerian children may likely choose to be a dog in a country like Canada, than to come here as a human being. It is so unfortunate. It is so unfortunate. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Are you there? Hello. Try to reconnect 0803-221-6973. Hello.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Mr. Franklin and Tony Sambeki, good morning.
You're welcome.
It's Anthony Mecheta. I'm looking for monitor. Permission to go ahead?
Just go.
Okay. I want to speak on the legality that INEC is challenging at the court and what the Federal High Court of Coordinate Jurisdiction delivered yesterday. My anticipation is what the appeal court will rule on the appeal that INEC have filed. Because as far as I'm concerned, I know that the appeal court will set aside the ruling of the Federal High Court based on Section 151 of the Electoral Act, which James Motosho emphasized that they have the right. And secondly, the timetable that was compressed by the INEC, as far as I'm concerned, did not violate Section 29, because Section 29 stated that the elections must not be later than 120 days. So the question will be, if what the INEC amended was later than 120 days. So I believe, I don't want to preempt anything, but for me, I know that INEC has a point that what they amended was not later than 120 days as the Act stipulated. But they have the right to regulate as long as it is not later than 120 days. So for me, I'm looking forward to the judgment of the appeal court to see what the appeal court will rule on that basis. As what the Federal Court ruled, for me, I believe it will be set aside as we anticipate the ruling of the appeal court. So let's wait and see how the things unfold.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kennedy. Good morning, Frank.
You're welcome. It's good to have you.
Good morning.
Anthony Sambeki. My name is Maroke Chuka, Council Monitor. Well, I want to join others to celebrate the children all around the world, and most especially the Nigerian children, especially the ones that are in the hands of this monster. I celebrate all of them. Happy Children's Day. My speaker, on the issue of the order from the Justice of Otosha, my speaker, that man should be, should be subjected to investigation and examination. And why I'm saying this, the reason why you Mr. Speaker, was explaining his order just like that, because there is already an existing order that goes straight to the point. If there is nothing like that order, my Speaker, you will be in a state of confusion. Because based on what you read out, on that judgment, it is confused.
How is it confused that it has to be done in compliance with it? It's not confusing. It's not confusing.
You explain that there is an existing order that went straight to what people want. If that order is not there, my Speaker, you will tell, yes, INEC has the power.
I think let me Mario, it was Nigerian dailies that made it confusing. It was Nigerian newspapers. The court says INEC has power to do this, but it must be in compliance with the Electoral Act. Finished. What is confusing? Anything you do that is not in compliance to the Electoral Act is null and void. That's the interpretation.
To me, I believe that Justice Omotosho needs to be investigated because I thought it needs to be investigated. Because why I'm saying this, so many orders that is coming from him, if you don't look it the other way, you will see another thing from the other angle.
Okay.
And I don't like it like that from him as a judge. And I want to ask you before I drop the call, Mr. Speaker. Now, INEC has appealed the existing order already. Now, what of this order from Omotosho? How is that going to be?
Okay.
What if appealing court maybe nullify or maybe still stand on what the Federal High Court said? The other one, is this still strong? That is what I want to ask.
Okay, I will answer that by the time.
You understand what I said?
Yeah, I answer. I will not now. Probably later. Or do you want me to answer now?
No. Later you can.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
0803-221-6973-0803-827-6694. Good morning.
Good morning from Honorable Audit Team, and I'm calling from Primaries. Wonderful.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just like I said in the morning, I'm still repeating it again. Children's Day. What is the fate of Nigerian child? Yes, Tony just did justice to that this morning by making us understand that we have different declarations, not even law, to protect the children. But today, I will put it to you that the Child Labor Act is not working. It's just there on the pages of newspaper. Come to the street right now as I'm speaking to you now. You see children under 10 years hawking pure water and the vegetables. Our law enforcement agencies are seeing them. The politicians, the senators, they do pass here too, or do possible. Even the other time, our governors came here and stopped by at this Johnson market here to address people. They all saw them. Nobody is doing anything about it, and today is Children's Day. What are the children? Who is even celebrating the children? Is this only when we all die before we will come up with the right to protect our children? Many of these child are being exposed to some monsters that handle them, even supply them defy them in different ways. Because we, the adults, the government, have failed to protect them. I remember growing up, Children's Day, we normally celebrate it in a grand style, but today, you can see some parents going to shop to their market with their children instead of sending them to school for whatever. But it is what it is, because those politicians, their children are not schooling here. All of them abroad. Thank you.
All right then. A few more calls and we head over to Facebook. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, Dr. Tony Sambeki, Franklin and Chiso. Good morning to you all.
You're welcome.
This is the voice of Chidi Chukuma joining you from Bo. Yes, I must say congratulations to children all over the world, especially Nigerian children. Today is their day. And in every situation, we must give glory to God Almighty. God have not disappointed you, or God is not against any child. Therefore, our leaders have failed you. That is the situation in Nigeria, because some of your colleagues are right here in the forest, facing cold, and I don't know how such people can feed them. Can children chew cud like animals? How can you turn the little children? Because some of the adults that have experienced this kind of situation have told us how they chew every grass or leaf that is not poisonous, making them to be just to look like animals. And all this right we are talking about, even when these rights are violated, who is there for you to seek redress? Nobody at all. So you just like Pepper Tiger, and there is nothing more than that. And you look at the judgment that we are talking about. I must tell you that the motor should have thrown more confusion. Because if it is a two legal issue there, you're supposed to focus on the different things. The Court of Coordinate Jurisdiction has given their judgment on that one. This judgment, it has come up
confusion. And the letter, you will understand what we are saying. It throws more confusion to the people. Why not avoid that one? Since if you believe that there is no difference at all, why not focus on the other side of it? About the INEC supervising or coming to the elections or the primary election, whether they have right to look at or to supervise or to monitor. Why not focus on that and leave the other one? The way they have put it, there is ambiguity there. At the end of the whole thing, who can give the right interpretation to that? Maybe that we will go back to the Supreme Court for proper interpretation. So it put more confusion there, and it is not good at all for our democracy.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Honorable Chief Ritambeki.
You're welcome. It's good to have you.
Yes, the voice of Honorable Mayor Opus JP Okuro Ochondo knows.
Go ahead.
I will not have anything to say, only to remind our president at this court that seeing to the affairs of Nigeria that our children, as we are celebrating Children's Day, that our children are there in the forest suffering mosquito bites and both snake and all those things that live in the forest. So I want to plead to them to use this opportunity of Children's Day to do the needful and rescue our children. Please and please. I am very much concerned. You can see that every day I go, I mention about these children. It affects me so much. Because I knew that these are future tomorrow of Nigeria. Among them, the governor or president of Nigeria tomorrow, we don't know, doctors. So please, as we are celebrating Children's Day, let it be the gift of Children's Day celebration to these innocent children in the forest. Thank you and God bless you.
08032216973. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Akamere.
Talk to us.
Yeah, and Akamere is calling from Philly.
Go ahead, please.
I want to say a big congratulations to all our children. And I want to tell them that I'm very sorry because they found out themselves in this country called Nigeria. Actually, my speaker has explained everything. But I just have a question. Like, we saw that some of the things that is happening in our society is because of all this social media and all this film that all these children are watching. You look at a lot of things, children killing their parents. And you saw, like, there was the one I saw on social media, either yesterday or today. That lady was on social media saying that in their class, that all the teachers, even the principals, are having a romantic relationship with her. And I want to add, and I know that the reason why all these things is happening is because of what they are seeing in social media and all these are film industry. So my speaker, I want to ask, is it good for parents to get phone, all these phones that can have access to internet? Is it good for parents to get it for their children? Thank you. Just answer that question.
All right. You will join the conversation later today because we're going to be having our debate competition and the topic centers on that. Mr. Speaker, I don't think you need to waste your energy on that, if you ask me. 08032216973. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good morning.
Sorry, good morning. Good morning.
Good to be good. From here now.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. I don't think I'm having it right or correct that I begin to say Happy Children's Day because no happiness there. Happy Children's Day when their fellow children are in the captivity of destroyers and killers and bloodsuckers in Oyo State and even Brunei State. So when I begin to say happy, so I blame student unions and I blame teachers association. They're supposed to go on strike. I'm telling you, because when a doctor is kidnapped, even in this Anambra state, you see medical doctors here going on strike until Anambra state government, struggle to release that their person. I'm telling you. So begin to say Happy Children's Day. Where is the happiness here? When a child of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, how many? About almost 2 weeks now in the den of kidnappers. We begin to say Happy Children's Day. Then secondly, I think in our judiciary system we have only a high court, appeal court, magistrate court, high court, appeal court, apart from customary court. I don't think after high court there is a higher court before appeal court and the Supreme Court. But today, I think within the high court there is a high court, because I don't see why a high court will give a verdict over a case. Another high court from another state will now counter it. Instead of the person to go to appeal court, another high court will now counter what another high court. It's very, very wrong. Thank you.
All right then. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Chisom.
Good morning.
Hello, Zabeki, good morning.
You're welcome.
Actually, we're calling you from Onitsha. We keep on saying something about these children kidnapped, these children that have been kidnapped, that in the kidnapped them for 2 weeks now, and we are celebrating that and celebrating Children's Day. It's very happy that federal government are insensitive to the feelings of the parents of these children. We are thinking of these children and we are here celebrating birthday, celebrating their Children's Day. What is the government doing about those people? And the parents are there crying, and the people who are going out and celebrating. What are we celebrating? This country is supposed to give me money. Today, everybody supposed to be fine in the house so that this.
Are you there? Hello? Hello?
And we're celebrating Children's Day. Some people are there in the bush crying with this weather. It's very happening. It's very bad. The government has to think twice. Thank you.
All right then. Let's head over to Facebook, Frank.
Okay, so let's see the reactions we have here on our Facebook page. A good number of them, I think about 17. Let's see the number of them we'll be able to acknowledge. So this very one is from Sebastian Abigwe from Ugwabobosi. He says, Happy Children's Day to our children at home because there's nothing to celebrate. Our children in various states of the Federation are in captivity, and the government at the center is not doing anything meaningful to release them. Rather, the road to 2027 is their major priority. And he says, honestly, having all these corrupt leaders at the corridor of power is the highest mistake ever made in the history of our democracy. Then Odili Aloysius says it's very painful that today is Children's Day and some of our children are not celebrating with their parents. Instead, they are somewhere with unknown people and our government is busy with politics for 2027. What a painful celebration. And he says, please, Mr. Speaker, parties are busy doing primary elections to elect their candidates for general election. Looking at some of these candidates, they have corruption cases with the EFCC and the cases are still pending in court. And he mentioned the likes of Abubakar Malami, Yahya Bello and co. So he says, so is it that there's no existing law that anyone with corruption cases should not stand for election pending the conclusion of the case in the court? I think we had addressed this already. That's no known law as long as you have not been convicted.
You're innocent until you're pronounced guilty by a court of law.
Nothing stops you from contesting an election in Nigeria. Dr. Miss, even in 1999 constitution, even when you have been convicted by court, after 10 years you can still go to contest. After 10 years. Dr. Missimo Libera from Ore says, Happy Children's Day to our threatened children. How can children who are still in captivity, denied quality education, basic standard of a living, and fundamental human rights be leaders of tomorrow? Sad that the basic rights of children are violated, abused, and neglected in some families, schools, and country at large. To check these abuses, government should, without delay, enforce all aspects of the universal basic education law. James Soki God says, regardless of what the high courts ruling, the appeal court to set the judgment aside based on Section 151 and the consistency of Section 29, upon which INEC has not violated. Okay, he says they have the right to compress, but not to exceed 120 days. Okay, Theophilus says celebrations of their he says, I agree with Adebayo asking President Tinubu to resign due to insecurity that has enveloped their country. And he says, growing up in the 70s, I think he will say, trying to say that growing up in the early 70s, it was a time when there was no fear anywhere compared to what it is now. Moreover, he posted from 33 on the chair. John Umbe says, on the issue of Goodluck Jonathan and 2027 presidency, it's my opinion that it's not the intention of the constitution that the president should stay more than 8 years in the presidency. The case of the governor of Ondo State is a classic example to prove that Jonathan cannot run for presidency again. He said it can make it shed light on the Ondo case of Governor Lucky, who has been barred from contesting another tenure. Rotrati Ketchuku Christopher from Abatansuba says, in celebrating our children, let's refocus on their general welfare, mostly on education. We cannot be celebrating a dilapidated and poor ventilated classroom. We can be celebrating them in poor furnished schools, while the children of our leaders are enjoying the best of life in high standard schools. We can be celebrating the government failure on our children and keep mute like all is well. Florence Masajowa says, what manner of Children's Day celebration is it for those Obamoshaw school kids and others in terrorist captivity and enduring worst form of torture and deprivation? And he says, President Tinubu, Governor Makinde, where are our children? Young Obeonwa, thank you for dropping by. Jeku Bishop says, happy Children's Day in good health to all the children in Nigeria. He posted from Ghana. Michael Ihemeneke from Oba says, thanking Tony for enlightenment on children's rights and laws in the country. And he says it's unfortunate in Nigeria that these are not observed and implemented. Onuora, thank you for watching from Enugu. The Amio Kong also thank you for wishing children happy Children's Day. Also, Annie Wisdom, thank you for doing so too. Angle Kokoye. Then James God. I think we had addressed this you posted more than twice. I think we've been able to do some justice to the comments we have, unless there's anyone that just dropped now. So Chisom.
All right then, Dr. Tony Olisambeki, what are your final words as we round off today's edition of the Polity?
I think let me just go back to the question asked. I think Maroke asked important question. Was asking that of what should be investigated. Of course, it's quite curious that the two judges, they are in Abuja division of the Federal High Court, not even different state, because some people were saying different state. No, they are both in Abuja jurisdiction of the Federal High Court. So why would the cases of subject matter being similar be assigned to two of them? That is by the way. Now let me state this. I think one of our listeners called in and was trying to interpret the meaning of later than, not later than 180 days. I think I will beg most times, come from a point of knowledge, research before you talk. Not later than 180 days means on or before. Another way of saying not later than 180 days means
not after.
Not after 180 days or on or before. Not after. So in this case, when you shorten it, it means that anybody who submits, you have cut off those who may submit on that 180 day. I don't even know what I'm saying. If 180
on
day,
or before means even on the 180
on the very day. So when you compress it, it means you have cut those who may submit on that very day. It will expire. So that's where most of these judgments. Yes, why Nigerian papers yesterday interpreted Omotocho was saying that the issuance made by INEC was valid. They what they said, but they also directed INEC to amend those provisions to comply with not later than 180 days. The judge said yes, what INEC issued in the eyes of the law is valid because they have the powers to do so, and directed INEC to amend some of its timetable to comply with Electoral Act. And the other one said, we are setting out those ones that do not comply. The other one says, amend those ones that do not comply to comply. These are different ways of trying to kill one thing. I don't know if you understand the point I'm trying to make.
All right,
so, but we must understand that. And then finally, I think there's something I also want to say. For those who are saying Children's Day internationally is just for Nigeria.
Absolutely.
We stated it, not internationally. Internationally is on 20th of November. If you had followed us when we were making the analysis, that's for the day there was international declaration of...
And different countries also have their different days. I mean,
of
for Japan, I think it is May 5 or so. Franklin, your final words, please.
Okay, just to add to what Tony said about what the Federal High Court, led by Justice Omotosho, did yesterday, I want people to understand this, that in this media practice, sometimes there is a way headlines are sponsored to favor a narrative. It happens. Now, when you see the true copy of the declarations made by the judge, you will see how explicit they are. But of course, different papers will craft headline in a way to get attention. That's what happens. If you look at what the SDP asked the court to do, SDP said, yes, we acknowledge that INEC has the powers to receive notices, attend, observe and monitor party primaries, but we want the court to determine whether this right extends to fixing or prescribing the timetable within which political parties must conduct their primaries. This is the prayer. And court now said, yes, INEC has powers to do all these things, has power to even issue timetable, but timetable must conform with the provisions of the Electoral Act.
All right.
So if you look at this and look at the fair judgment, they are in the same sphere.
They are talking the same thing, but people just misinterpreted it. Remember, INEC had filed stay of execution of Omar's judgment before appeal court, but appeal court has not granted that stay of execution. So what that means that judgment is still enforceable. It's still enforced. It's a declarative judgment. It's a judgment that cannot even stay of execution, cannot even quench. Time will not permit me to explain it.
All right then, gentlemen, thank you for your wonderful contribution this morning. And of course, thank you for your calls and your contribution. And like we already pointed out, this is the 52nd day since May 27 became Nigeria's Day of Celebrating Children. And unfortunately, critically looking at the situation of the Nigerian child, there is little or nothing to celebrate, especially as we still have over 40 children in God knows where after they were taken away from their schools in Orire, Oyo State. We're calling on all relevant stakeholders, the Oyo State government, the federal government, the security operatives from the military to the police to Amoteku over there in the west, to come to the aid of these two children. Whatever it is we do today, our moods are still dampened because only God knows the fate of these children. The only crime, of course, was to go out there to seek knowledge and, of course, better lives for themselves. And of course, we're calling for proper implementation of policies that protect the rights of children and, of course, rights to better living. This is where we get to bring down the curtain on today's edition of the Polity, which is going to make a return tomorrow 9:15 down to 11 a.m. right here on Udala Radio 104.7 FM. I am Chisom Chinedu, and don't forget that at exactly 12:15, right after the news at noon, our debate competition is going to start. And like I told someone earlier, that conversation about whether or not it is safe for children to use phones is at the center of our conversation from 12:15 down to 3 p.m. Don't touch the dial. 104.7 Udala Radio. Good morning.
Before the bridges came